and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
On with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm your trophy for excellence, Mike.
I'm Colton.
And it's Jill.
And we are back for the first episode of 2024. I have to keep reminding myself that even though we're doing this in 2023, that you guys think it's 2024, because...
Yeah, but it's barely 2023.
We're just pulling the wool over your eyes. We're just lying about everything, so...
Yeah, I think all of us are probably ready to, hop into the new year, be finished with 2023.
So hopefully everybody's holiday season was amazing, fantastic. You got to watch some movies that aren't problematic. You got to hang out with some family and all that good kind of stuff. So let's get into it. You know where we're starting, what we have been consuming, what we've been watching, what we've been reading, what you've been listening to, anything really. Just what you did over the holidays. And Mike, we're going to start with you.
Oh, thank you. Well, since we last recorded, I think I've had 2 days off, and they were one of them was Christmas Day, so I have not consumed or watched or done much of anything. What I have consumed is I just started reading the new biography of the postmodern experimental writer Kathy Acker called Eat Your Mind. She's really wild if you like William S. Burroughs and people like that. That's kind of, she was an heir to that sort of off the wall, your brain is exploding type of writer. I'm really enjoying that so far. It's very well written, and she was an extremely interesting human being. Other than that, the only I've been watching trash, catching up on all my Real Housewives that I haven't watched all year. But nice. I also finally, because it's on Prime, because I missed it when it came out in theaters here, watched Saltburn, which I really liked. I had problems with it, but I also really liked it. Ro will tell you, I love The Talented Mr. Ripley more than I love oxygen going in my lungs.
Are you pumped for the new show coming out, or?
I'm on the fence. I'm very pumped and also very scared. But luckily, oh my god, it's what's his name? Andrew Scott.
Oh, okay.
Priest from Fleabag. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's excellent. So I think he will do it justice. I just need it to be very lushly filmed and gorgeous, and then we'll be fine. And preferably show full frontal nudity. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so it was very Talented Mr. Ripley-esque in my mind, which I quite enjoyed. I love the vibe of it. The 2006 setting was so good for me because it was literally my iTunes library from 2006. I'm every song in this is has been on all my playlists since the early 2000s. And the performances, obviously, love it. So, yeah.
I watched it, too, and one thing that it really reminded me of, another show which I really love, and no, it's not Euphoria, but, the blueprint for Euphoria, which is The Skins. Skins. Mm-hmm. Skins! I was Skins, sorry.
What show is that, Jill? But the American or the British one?
Obviously the British one. But that was my entire personality in high school, and I fucking loved it. And
I believe it.
It gave very fuck you.
I can see you love it being I'm Effie,
Yeah, I was more of a Cassie girl.
Of course.
But anyway, really reminded me of Skins, and I love that. And I loved all the literary references that they had as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just gonna chime in and seem like she liked it like more than all of us. I think she gave it like a 4.5 or something. Like Jill was
I did give it.
Yeah,
that's my type of movie. Anybody, fucking dirt, a grave, I'm in for it. I'm
100%.
100%.
Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty good. I said I need to watch it again. Like, I don't know. There's just something. I thought the music was good. I liked the setting. I did like the vibe of it. I don't know. I just felt it was a little try hard. That was like my whole thing where I was like, this is obviously like trying to be like, it just felt like it was trying to be exactly what the movie was, but like, it just seemed like for some reason inauthentic to me. It was like, I'm gonna make this like hit movie that's gonna be like kind of whatever. Everyone's like whatever in it, and it's, yeah, I don't know. There's just something to me that like felt off, and I was just like, I still think I like actually like Promising Young Woman better than Saltburn, but maybe I'll change my mind on another watch. But
yeah,
the way we gave it the same rating but like had two totally different opinions of it. I text, it's so funny. I will reveal myself now and admit that I texted the group chat when we were talking about it and said the only reason I didn't rate it higher on Letterboxd was because I was sick of giving everything 4 stars. I'm such a phony.
I came out gunning for Rowan, and I didn't even realize that Mike gave it the same review. I was just like, oh my god, so disgusted by Rowan giving another 3.5. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying though, Rowan. Like, it's trying to be subversive. It's obviously trying to be controversial and whatnot, right? So, and a lot of kind of the online talk around it, even myself on the previous episode to a little degree, is like, how weird and how wild it is, and how like some people will be upset by it or whatever. It's unlike anything else you've ever seen. And I mean, I don't know. I still think about it quite often. I think it's a pretty weird and wild movie, but it's definitely something I want to watch again as well.
For sure.
But not really like suitable for the, the holiday watches that I've been doing with my family here. So I'll say
I think your mom would love it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Maybe she would. Maybe she would. I have no idea. But yeah, Jill, you've also been checking out more things, right? Like you were talking about some problematic watches here before we started recording. So.
Are you trying to throw the ball to me?
Well, keep going. You were supposed to kick things off. I mean, you were the one who watched Saltburn.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say it also had like a very Mike Flanagan quality to me in the way that in the way that everyone fucking sucks, and it was the kind of same thing here. Like Follow the House of Usher.
Yeah, I guess there is like parallel to that specifically with like the ultra rich and
people,
wealthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Decadence.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, like comparing it to like, I don't know, Midnight
You looked
Mass
at me like I had 5 heads.
Or Hush or something. It's just, a bit strange. But yeah, I can get that comparison.
But yeah, that's all I had to say about it. I like the, Midsummer Night Dream, like, party they had, and, like, all of the mythology that they tied into it. They had Robert Browning's My Last Duchess mentioned, and I fucking love that poem. And it also, like, all the themes just, like, link in there from everything they source or reference. There's, like, some meaning in there. And I really enjoyed that, and that's why I gave it such a good rating. Also love what's his face from Euphoria. What's his name? Is it Jacob
Elordi?
Yeah, him. He's so hot. And honestly, hot take, my favorite fucked up scene. Everyone keeps talking about the bathtub scene, like on TikTok, but I like the blood scene, the vampire scene. I thought that was so interesting. And then he's talking about like, he's a vampire, and then obviously you find out at the end he's sucking these rich people dry. He's a social vampire. He just uses everyone, and I really love that. And I've been reading a lot of things that have like it's either about vampires or has the theme of like overconsumption or consumption in general. Also listening to a lot of Sleep Token, and Colton's good. Sleep Token has a lot of cannibalistic, like sexual cannibalistic like themes in their lyrics. Like Vor is about like consuming someone else. And it doesn't have to be like literally consuming someone like from a cannibalistic point of view, but you can also take that deeper and be like, you're so in love with someone that you're going to consume everything about them. That's what I gather from Sleep Token. And that was also here, but in a more malevolent way. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Saltburn. Yeah, problematically so. I watched one of my favorite Christmas movies this year, which I watch yearly, Christmas with the Cranks. I don't know what it is about that movie. I think it's hilarious. I know it's stupid. I know the premise of it is so dumb. Like, these people are crazy. But I don't know. It has that like Christmas warmth in it, and I love that movie. I think it's funny. Who cares if there's problematic actors and actresses? We're not going to mention them. We're just going to say the movie is great. And I love seeing Jamie Lee Curtis yelling over a ham. Anyway, moving on. I also watched Violent Night, which is the first time I've ever seen that. And for some reason, I always thought it was a horror movie, and it is not. So
I feel like it's always kind of categorized as that, just because I think like the horror community's kind of adopted it just because it's like a violent Christmas movie.
It's very interesting.
I thought you were going to say it's like a violent night.
Oh, we're getting there. No, but it's more like a thriller with, it's funny, and it's got a lot of like black humor, and it still is a good Christmas movie. I would say it's pretty fun. Like, I don't know if I'd watch it again, but it was pretty hilarious. On Christmas Day, I got suckered into watching The Muppet Christmas Carol, as I do every single year. But this is the first time.
That's not suckered. That's called watching a classique. How dare you?
Preach it, Mike. Preach it.
I love the Muppets, okay? I love the Muppets. The Muppets Haunted Mansion is my favorite version of the Haunted Mansion.
That's fantastic.
Because it's the best.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Miss Piggy is like queen to end all queens. She's like mother supreme.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to have a Miss Piggy like little mirror, and I just wanted to be her. But anyway, watch the Muppet Christmas Carol, which was okay. I never really get to sit down and watch it because everyone's talking. My sister-in-law is obsessed with that movie. She sits down, says every single word. She could be up making mashed potatoes, still saying every line. And I'm like, what? Like, what did I miss out on in my childhood? Because like I said, Jingle All the Way is my favorite Christmas movie. But yeah, some people really love The Muppet Christmas Carol. But for me, it was kind of mid, and I'm very sorry about that. That's all I got for movies. For books, everyone pull up a chair.
Oh, no.
Currently, I am reading From Blood and Ash by Jennifer Armentrout. I tried reading this in June. I got one chapter through and I threw it down. I was so mad. I wasn't into it because there was no map. And I was like, how can you have a fantasy book and not have a map? That's stupid. And then she used a lot of dashes, and that kind of pissed me off too. But anyway, I'm into it now. It's good. It's got vampire stuff in it. It's got werewolf stuff in it. I know what it sounds like. But it's good. All right. So reading that, when I was like in high school, I read a Jennifer Armentrout vampire book, and it was amazing. And she's written so much since then that I can't even find a copy of this book. So that's interesting. I'm still reading Iron Flame. I don't know if I brought that up before, but it's taken me a long time to read it. It's
not
okay.
Into the dragons?
I'm into the dragons. I just don't really like small font in a book, like a really compact book. I want a big book. I want big pages. I want big print because I'm blind. And this stuff is so hard for me to get through. And another book I read is called Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moaning. And I got this book at Barnes & Noble because I went up to an employee and I was like, I'm in a reading rut. All I want to read is Sarah J. Maas. And I can't find anything else. And she was like, read this one. It's really good. And then she was like, yeah, the Shadow Daddy in this book makes Rhysand from ACOTAR look like nothing. And I was like, I don't believe that, but, you know, we'll see. So I read it, and she was wrong. And it was okay. It was pretty mediocre. It's set in Ireland. It's a fairy book.
Did you say the Shadow Daddy?
Yeah, Shadow Daddy.
Oh,
so,
okay. All right.
So, in like...
Wait, is that what he's actually called, or is that just what the, like... Stan community
this is
calls
the Stan
him.
Well, it's an archetype, so it's like that type of character who's like dark. It's basically like the Byronic hero, but with wings and is a fairy.
Yeah, okay.
I thought it was literally the name of the book. I was like, oh.
Oh no, No.
I'm
no,
like,
no.
is this in the Penguin Dictionary of Literary Terms and Phrases? Like,
Well, it ought to be.
Shadow Daddy?
It's gonna be my new video game tagger name, Shadow Daddy.
But anyways, I just want to point out that my fairy like men, they're not like typical fairy men with like, you know, like a pixie with wings. They're like bat boys. Okay, they're cool. They're dark.
They have tattoos.
They do have tattoos.
They
Yes,
listen to
they
heavy
do.
music.
Oh my god. Yes.
Okay, how have you not read Laurel K. Hamilton's fairy series?
Can you link it to me?
Yeah, I will. Okay, I'll send it to you after.
Okay, I'm
After
done.
the pod, guys. After the pod.
Yeah.
And since, you know, Colton, you have so much to say, what are you doing up there, you know, in Labrador these days?
These days, basically, we've just kind of been watching, you know, various things through the holidays. We have been checking out the Fall of the House of Usher, but we haven't finished it yet. We have 2 episodes left, so I'll withhold my judgment until then. But so far, I think it's been pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were kind of mixed on it, but I've been enjoying it. I've rewatched Across the Spider-Verse, which I still think is very good. What'd you say?
It's a banger.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's good as the first one. That's a banger.
The first one is an absolute banger.
Okay, I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that. I've rewatched Midsummer, which
another banger.
I will say this time when I watched it with the fam, I did like it a little bit more. I think I started at like a 2.5 on the movie, and then I bumped it to a 3, and now I'm at a 3.5. I can't see it getting higher than that. But I will now say it's not incredibly mid. It's it's kind of good. It's probably
It is good. I don't know what's wrong with you. Midsummer is like made for people like you and me.
For Cold now, it's good. It's good summer. It's not mid.
It's like Wicker Man, but not. And I love Wicker Man, and I love Midsummer. I can't believe
it's like Wicker Man, but worse. So it's just I'd rather watch Wicker Man. But
you hurt me.
I also watched Oppenheimer. Rewatched that again this afternoon. 3 hours. It still flies by. Still a very good movie. I'm not in the masterpiece camp, but I also enjoyed it a little bit more on a second watch. But mainly, I've been checking out the new Scott Pilgrim series on Netflix.
Nice.
Have any of you guys checked that out, or does anyone care about Scott Pilgrim?
I didn't even know what was happening.
I've got it on my watch list to watch. I just haven't got to it yet.
I want to watch it. I just got rid of Netflix.
Yeah, well, I'm not using legitimate Netflix either. But yeah, I think Scott Pilgrim, like the original source material, either the comics or the book from 2010, doesn't really hold up. In a modern lens. I always hear people kind of talking about how problematic Scott is as a character, how toxic he is, or dating a high schooler, which was obviously problematic back then for an adult to be doing. But I think I was in high school at the time, so it didn't it didn't bump for me. It just seemed, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever.
You're like, sure, I'll date an older person.
Well, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess it would be reversed. Yeah, I guess at the time because I was in high school. But yeah, this one's kind of like a sort of alternate reality take. The first episode seems beat for beat the Edgar Wright movie until right at the very end, Scott Pilgrim actually loses his fight with Matthew Patel and dies. So the whole series from there changes completely. They kind of refocus the whole story on Ramona and kind of delves deeper into her and all the side characters and the evil exes. It has all the voice cast from the original movie, I think, other than Brie Larson, because she's probably too big of a star nowadays to get her. And it's an interesting series. There's a lot of creative episodes, lots of concepts. Its animation keeps it unique and fresh. It was just it was honestly just an easy watch. Every episode's only 25 minutes or so. So yeah, I checked that out over the past week or so. And then in addition to that, really the only other new thing I watched was Maestro, which is also on Netflix, or your Netflix adjacent if you don't want to pay for Netflix. But I don't know. I didn't really like that one as much as I was expecting to. I saw Rowan's kind of glowing review. I went into it, and obviously this is one that's been talked about for months, since it premiered. And what I'll say is I do think that the cinematography, the technicals were gorgeous. Obviously the music's really great. Carey Mulligan is fantastic. She's kind of like the heart and soul of the movie. But the script, I don't know. The script really left me wanting more. It's one of those biopics that chooses to kind of go against the mold of where it doesn't adapt the entire person's life, but kind of focuses on one core concept, where with this one, it's obviously just the relationship, his marriage. And that was fine. but I didn't feel like they delved deep enough for me to really genuinely care about what was happening there. And I also feel like I don't really know much about Leonard Bernstein and like his extramarital affairs or like even like his music or anything. Like they kept a lot of that just completely out of the movie. Like a lot of it is just kind of romantic drama. So that kind of left me, at arm's length. And I will say Bradley Cooper in the movie, sometimes I found him to be like genuinely like creepy. Like, I don't know, he gave me like sleep paralysis demon vibes or like, I don't know, like he was wearing like someone's skin. Like it didn't seem like he was always there. Maybe it was just like the layers of makeup, or maybe it was just like how committed he was to it and he just seemed really off. Or maybe Leonard Bernstein was honestly like that. I don't know. I don't know anything about the real guy, but it was just something like, once again, that kind of kept me from like really getting invested in the character of him. Still has a couple of great scenes. It's just, I don't know, for me, it's a far cry from one of the best films of the year. Good, but I was, left pretty disappointed. Rowan, I kind of alluded to, you had a glowing review of this one, so how about you take it from here?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because when I watched it, I feel like probably the first half hour or so, I probably was lower on it than you were, and I was like, I don't really get what's going on. Like you, I've kind of heard who he was and stuff through podcasts that I listen to, but like I'm not familiar with him. Anything he's kind of had to do with Hollywood is not my scene. It seems like he was involved in like, West Side Story and like some musical stuff, which obviously is just not my thing. And I wouldn't say my classical music tastes they're pretty pedestrian from, like what I listen to would just be basic, like Beethoven, Mozart, stuff like that. But yeah, to me, I don't know, man. It was just as it went on, this was like a vibe thing for me because I probably couldn't really tell you how much I loved the story, but I did just like the look and the feel of it. And I just felt as it was going, the focus on, the relationship between Bernstein and his wife. Like, I don't really know how to describe it other than, like, I just felt moved by it and, like, intrigued and interested by it. And then I was like, oh, shit, like, I guess I'm kind of into this. But saying that, I did give it a glowing review, and I'm not too sure if... Like, I don't know if I'd revisit this again, or, like, I don't have a real want to watch it again. So... that could in the future maybe bring that rating down a bit for me. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. Colton's giving me the sign. So yeah, why don't we do this? I'll briefly just say what I watched for the holidays, because I did get a couple holiday viewings, and not as much as I would have liked to, because obviously, like I said, I worked pretty much right up to Christmas Day, but I did get to watch Ernest Saves Christmas, which I do every year. I love Ernest. I've said that 8 million times on the podcast. That holds up. It's that one is a banger. It's a 100% banger. And then it was really me just hitting, like I kind of said, I preempted in the last episode, like I'm gonna hit the ones I hit every year. So Christmas Day, I made sure that Garfield Christmas Special was watched. 4 Christmases was watched. That's like me and Exilia, one of our favorites, so we watch that every year. That is banger. It's hilarious. Vince Vaughn's amazing in that one. And I also, kind of inspired by Gill, revisited The Muppets Christmas Carol, just because that one I used to watch all the time when I was a kid, and I have not seen it since I was a kid. And I was like, you know what? Let's watch something a little different. And yeah, I love it. I understand why I watched it when I was a child, because it's fantastic. And the one I watched that wasn't so fantastic was Dashing Through the Snow, which is the new Disney Christmas movie starring Ludacris. And yeah, it's the highlight of it for me, and I figure probably everyone, is Lil Rel Howery is the co-star who plays Santa Claus, and he is fantastic in it. I mean, obviously, we raved about him in the Get Out episode and how funny he is, and he continues it on in this. He's super funny. Every time he was on screen, I was laughing. Ludicrous, I don't know, man. There's literally a scene in this where it zooms in on his face and he just goes, "That's ludicrous."
Oh my god.
I would die. That's
Yeah.
peak humor. What do you mean?
You know, it wasn't like offensively bad. I think if you're a kid, like, you might like this. And it was obviously interesting. Like, the soundtrack was pretty good. It was all like Motown Christmas stuff. Yeah. What else did I watch? I did a couple rewatches. I rewatched the Ace Ventura movies. They were on Tubi. I was at work and I was like, hey, I haven't seen those since I was younger. And yeah, I mean, probably the first one, definitely problematic to say the least of it. You know, I feel like it's hated more as it ages just for how problematic it is. But I always forget that Sean Young is like one of the stars of this. So, you know, shout out to Sean Young. But at the same time,
honestly, icon.
Yeah, icon. And I mean, but there's always a soft spot for me. Like, me and Mom always used to watch Ace Ventura. Like, that's one of Mom's favorite movies. And I was a Jim Carrey kid. So the second one, I was never a big fan of the second one. But the second one's pretty wild on, like, me being an adult and watching it now. Because it's just so different in tone from the first, and it's like really absurd comedy. There's like weird references to the Stallone movie Cliffhanger in it, and like it's doing all this stuff where they basically strip it of anything problematic and turn it more into like this weird kids comedy that also has like jokes about jerking off in it. So that's also kind of odd. a lot of comedy stuff. And I also did, I think I mentioned a couple months ago, I've been going slowly through George Carlin's, filmography, his HBO specials. So I watched George Carlin live at USC. I also checked out George Carlin Playing with Your Head. Those two were all right. They're like 70s, 80s Carlin. Not really what most people think of Carlin. This is he was a little more family friendly then, like making a lot of faces. And then I got into George Carlin, What Am I Doing in New Jersey, which I actually really enjoyed. This was the beginning of like political social commentary Carlin, where he's like an angry old man. I think this is like after like his first stroke. So this is where we kind of get Carlin that everyone has known and loved. So I enjoyed that one. I finally got to catch The Creator and went up on Disney Plus, and I missed it in the theater. I really enjoyed it. I know it was kind of, I feel like critically didn't do very well. Yeah, I thought it looked beautiful, especially for the budget. I didn't realize it had, it was only like an $80 million budget. And this thing looks better than like any Marvel movie I've seen in, years. So I was just super impressed. And I mean, I've had the conversation before. Anything with David Washington, I'm going to support. I just love David Washington.
I can't believe you love that guy. Just, God, whenever I see, he's like anti-charisma in the movies, I find.
I love his anti-charisma. Yeah, what else did I watch? I watched Firenado. This is one for note. This is on Tubi, produced and co-directed by the same guy that did Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh, God.
Yeah, why did I watch this? Because, I said it's getting towards the end of the year. Let me look at my 2023 watch list. And, what haven't I watched I need to watch? This was the first one I added at the beginning of the year. So I said,
just had to make sure that it wasn't gonna make your top 10, was it? Just
it might, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But bad. Yeah, this was pretty wild. It's pretty funny. If you're having drinks with friends, definitely go watch this. It was a time. Everyone is British in it, but they're all supposed to be from Texas and in the States. They drive on the right side of their car. The steering wheels are British, even though this is in Houston, Texas, as I'll say again. And just so you know that they're American, they drive around in a van that just has a giant American flag, posted on the wall of the van.
That's what it's like here. I'm not even lying.
It's on the inside, and it's pretty impressive. But yeah, I thought it was going to be a disaster movie. It's not. it's a heist movie. Just there's a fire-nado coming towards a house that people are trying to pull a heist at. And they've got like this like no-name brand version of Jason Statham in it. He's like bald and British and the same mannerisms, but he's like not as muscular or charming.
Damn, that is
the
mean.
The RC
Poor
Cola.
guy. Yeah.
Jason Statham.
The music, the score was actually fantastic. I don't know what the fuck happened that they somehow got this awesome score in it, but it was like this weird, like dark synth like going on the entire time. So that brought it up.
Hell yeah.
I watched A Folded Ocean, just because that was on my list
I still haven't checked it out yet. I can't get it to go on my TV while I'm here with my parents.
Because you have to watch it on whatever service it's on.
It's Vimeo, like, staff pick, but it's unlisted. It's such a nuisance to get to.
Yeah, and, like, when you open it, you gotta, like, click on the menu on the screen in order for it to play, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, I watched this. It's directed by the lead visual artist from Everything Everywhere All at Once, which we all know is one of my favorite movies all time.
Shut up. I know you still haven't seen it.
I was going to say, haven't you never watched it?
But this was pretty cool. It's like a body horror short. Gill might be into it. Saltburn Themes. It's about consumption.
Okay.
It's about codependency and consumption and just kind of toxic relationships. I don't really want to say more. I don't want to really like spoil it for people, but I suggest like look it up, go watch it. It's literally, I think, like 11 minutes, 12 minutes. And the effects are awesome. The sound design's awesome in it. It's pretty creepy. And then, the rest are kind of things like I said, just knocking off my list for 2023. I watched Missing, which was this, unfriended style movie where, like, you're looking at a computer screen the entire time.
Have you seen Searching?
I haven't seen Searching.
Okay, all right.
I looked it up to see if I needed to. Apparently this has, other than it's the same guy that made it, it's got no connection. He said it's a standalone, like, it's just kind of in that world of computer screens.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in the in-world television show that they're watching, I think maybe they reference the first movie and show footage from the first movie. But I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it.
And I thought this was, this was mid. I thought it was all right. Like, when I was watching it, it takes some wild turns just to kind of keep the mystery alive. And I thought that was fun while I was watching it. I didn't think it used the screen thing as well as it possibly could. They did a lot of stuff to try to make it new and fresh, but I found they almost broke out of that a little bit, and then they try to tie
in the third act especially.
Yeah, and they try to tie it back in and be like, oh, we didn't really break the premise.
There was enough security cameras everywhere to get these 20 different camera angles.
Yeah. So honestly, I think other than Host and Unfriended, I don't know if anyone's ever really done this as successful. I'm a big Unfriended guy. I don't know why we've never reviewed that. Maybe someday.
I know, you keep talking about it.
I love Unfriended.
Let's not.
I'll do it.
Well, yeah, we're definitely doing it now. Jill's got it down as her number one pick now.
Oh, God.
And then let's talk about what one we should review soon. My top movie of 2023, and that is Rebel Moon Part 1, which I just...
No, you missed part of it. It's Part 1, what is it? Child of Fire.
Child of Fire. It would be called that.
Put some respect on the name.
This was an experience. Now, I will say I already went into watching this angry, so I did hear the other day... I had already known the news that they basically tried to fake invent a Snyder Cut scenario with this. So that Snyder he made it's a PG-13, this whole trilogy, but he has made a rated R version of this and they've already announced that once this comes out, they will release the rated R version of the trilogy afterwards, which...
It's also longer.
Yeah,
right? Like, I think
it's
there's
way
like an extra hour or so to this movie. Yeah.
Which isn't as offensive when, these are cuts that you didn't want happen to your movie and you had to leave your movie because of death and all that. But when this is literally manufactured by him and Netflix to try to create the Justice League Snyder Cut hype, it's just like, to me, I'm like, that is so cheap and like, it's just like a spit in the face to people. Like, if this isn't what you wanted in the public, like, put the rated R one out first and just do that, which it needed, because a lot of the issues with this is, you know, it gets pretty violent, like pretty brutal, and they don't show anything. It's like people get shot in the face and then you're looking at them and they're just stunned like it's a Looney Tunes movie because he wants it to be a PG rating. The cast is like, you know, surprisingly pretty good. It's like character actors I enjoy in other things.
Isn't Sophia Boutella in this?
Yeah, she's the lead, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Charlie Hunnam's in it. There's
oh my God,
Hansu.
My husband.
Yeah.
My wife and my husband. Sorry, back off, everyone.
Charlie Hunnam just literally just reprising his character from Sons of Anarchy, essentially, with his original accent, but also, like, looking at the camera being like, hey, you guys know I'm Han Solo, right? Like, he calls himself a scoundrel. He's got a ship like the Millennium Falcon. They literally go to an alien bar to find a pilot to take them to another planet to, like, you know, fight the Imperial forces. And he's like, oh, enough money, you can hire me. Like, let's go. Like, they have all the beats of Star Wars in this. There's a lot of, like, Dune influence, and pretty much any big epic. And Snyder's like, let me just scene for scene rip everything off I can.
I'm still hung up on the fact that you called it the Millennium Falcon.
I meant to say Falcon.
I'm like, they couldn't afford the rights to Falcon.
I mean, realistically, guys, that's how much I care about Star Wars. But,
we know.
Yeah.
But it's still fucking
the Millennium
funny.
Vacuum, you know? My favorite ship.
But yeah, it's just, this movie's not good. This movie, I said in my Letterboxd review, and also I'll give you the inside ball on this one. I still got 20 minutes to watch this. I don't think I'm going to finish it.
You rated and logged and reviewed this movie without finishing it?
You are a liar.
Oh, bro. Phony.
I'm angry now. I'm angry. Fired up.
I might watch the last 20 minutes like in a couple weeks or something. Like, it's that bad that I kept turning it off and having to come back to it because I was so just appalled by it. So, like I said, the creator, $80 million movie. This was $166 million, and it looks like shit. It looks like a made-for-TV movie.
To be fair, every, like, CGI-heavy thing for the last 10 years looks like shit.
Other than the creator looks pretty good. And I mean,
I don't know what the creator is,
or like unless it has like an infinite budget or something like the Avatar 2 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
this just like it looks terrible. Everything is really bad. I can't think of his name. The guy that plays Cyborg in Justice League. He is in this. And I, like, laughed out loud. They have these huge fake dreadlocks on him, and he's talking in, like, a made-up fake deep voice, and it's just, like, it's wild. Everyone's talking like they're in Game of Thrones. They're all talking in, like, this weird... I think Snyder thinks it's like fantasy talk, but it sounds like old English, like just, it's just wild. Like
I want to see Zack Snyder old English. Let's see what that sounds like.
Oh my God.
Don't hurt me like
there's
that.
There's choices here. I don't even know if old English is the right term. Like maybe just
Did
like
it sound like The Witch?
Kind of. It just sounds like weird, weird like British people or something. Like I don't know.
Oh my God, that's old English.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching a period piece, but it's in space. I don't know.
We know how much you hate those.
Yeah.
Except for the best period piece of all time, Ginger Snaps.
Oh hell yeah!
I thought you were gonna say Marie Antoinette, and then I was like,
Question,
yeah, of course. But
no, this is a period piece.
Yeah, because it's bloody.
Come on, bro.
But however, the third one is technically a period piece.
Yeah,
it's like like colonial Canada.
True.
But also,
which we'll find out when we do it.
Yeah, soon.
God.
Next month. Is the Muppet Christmas Carol technically not a period piece?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
But that's got a Oscar award-winning actor Michael Caine in it, so that's okay. But anyway, I'm going to end it off with this, because I know there's probably people listening that are like, you know, I've got a shrine to Zack Snyder in my house.
I do.
I'm going to find out where this guy lives. I'm going to murder him. This is coming from a guy that, like, I don't hate Zack Snyder. Man of Steel, probably one of my favorite superhero movies. I love Man of Steel. Sucker Punch, that's my jam.
I was going to say, Sucker Punch is literally the #1 greatest movie that it has ever been made.
I love Sucker Punch. Yeah. I love the Watchmen movie. Like, Dawn of the Dead, one of the great remakes.
Yep. Sarah Polley does not star in many movies, and she starred in that one for a reason.
And I didn't, you know, was the Snyder Justice League cut not amazing? It wasn't.
Masterpiece.
But it was better than the other movie. Like, I don't hate Snyder, so don't think I'm just, like, hating on him to hate on him. I usually am tolerable of his stuff, at least. This was just really bad.
Come for me instead, because I think most of those movies are pretty bad. But
I mean, yeah, but you know,
you would.
Yeah, you would. Anyway,
that's okay. Not everybody has
Sucker
taste.
Punch is also on the list.
Okay, Sucker Punch, I'll agree with. You can go back. I got a Facebook review of that like 10 years ago. Saying it was excellent. So I'll agree on Sucker Punch and 300 and the original Dawn of the Dead. Outside of that, I think everything else he's done is of questionable quality, is what I'll say.
I'll take it.
But anyway, that's where we'll end it. I'm ending with that rant. Let's get into the main event. This is our first episode of Wanuary. Wanuary?
Yes.
It's got to be Wanuary. So.
I'm calling
we
it
gotta
Wanuary.
go Wanuary.
No, it's Wanuary. You guys are so wrong for that.
I mean, it's James Wan, but it's Wanuary.
No, the listeners are going to be mad. Like, tell us which one you prefer.
Rightfully so.
I like to think of it as like a dialect thing. Some people say Wanuary, some people say Wanuary. It depends where you're from.
Yeah, and he's Australian, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah, there you go.
What about Wong?
Wong.
Or Wang. Wanguary. But it's just movies about dicks.
I was going to say,
maybe that's
we
for
were
next
talking
year.
about Saltburn.
when we brain
hang on, I'm going to make up a letterbox list for that so we can consult it next year.
Hell yes.
But yeah, so this was my pick. This was I had to pick Malignant. We you know, I think we said it last time. We did this on Now Slaying before Colton was officially on the podcast, and he loved it so much. He was like, "When can we talk about it again?" And I was like, "Well, Colton, you got to wait a little bit." Yeah, so that's not how it went, I promise.
I feel like my brand on the show has just been throwing shade at this movie for 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So it was time to, you know, when we did the Now Slaying, I feel like Mike was pretty mid on it. I went and I saw he was, I think you gave it like a okay on, didn't you? I think. I can't remember. And I was pretty high on it. I remember I really had a time. So do I still think that?
I watched it in the middle of the afternoon, like after I got home from working a 5 o'clock in the morning shift. So.
Yeah. I gave it a nay. Mike gave it an okay, and Rowan gave it a yay. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how our opinions differ on it.
I just want to point out though that Rowan's Discord picture for years, I think, has been the Malignant like poster.
Yeah, we used that for our socials at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. We all had our pictures as the heads.
They had a like Instagram filter where it uses your face instead of Annabelle's. Yeah.
God, we're just old people now. Old people using the filters like that, and they're like, "I'm cool. I'm definitely hip with it." So let's get into it. We'll get into Malignant from 2021. We'll get into the trailer, and we'll be back with the synopsis and our first experiences.
Whatever you went through before you joined our family, it hurt you.
Who are you talking to? Is he your imaginary friend?
You created him so that you could survive.
It's happened before. I'm the only one that can see him. He's back. And he's coming for me.
Malignant was directed by James Wan and written by Akela Cooper, and the story is as follows. Following the oh-so-tragic death of her abusive husband, Madison begins to experience visions of grisly murders of those connected to her distant past. But once a mountain of evidence leads to Madison being taken into police custody, the true culprit rears its ugly head in the form of Gabriel, a malignant growth and conjoined twin that resides in the base of Madison's skull, that not only has full control over Madison's mind and body, but also access to a host of supernatural powers.
So, is this our first time seeing this, or have we been waiting for Wanuary our entire lives? We kind of already spoiled about whether or not we've seen this before.
We all watched it, yeah.
3 of us have seen it. Jill, have you seen it before?
I have. I think I brought that up the last episode.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. I will say, I did mention seeing this. I saw this in the theater during COVID. This was like a prime COVID movie, so hopefully that doesn't bring any trauma to people when they're remembering this film that, you know, you were masked up. I think this might have been one of the first movies that I saw with a mask on that I wanted to just like shoot myself in the head because I was dying of heat exhaustion. But yeah, COVID.
Yeah, I think this came out like after the second wave or something. I remember it wasn't the same year, obviously, as like Tenet, where Christopher Nolan tried to kill everybody by forcing that movie to only be in theaters. But I think it was like the following year. And I remember that as well, that it came out in theaters and on digital at the same time. So I just watched it from the comfort of my own home on Discord with a couple of friends. Which, I mean, this is kind of the sort of movie that you want to watch with friends. I don't know if you have to see it in theaters. It's better probably with people to kind of crack jokes or at least discuss it, you know, at the end of it.
Yeah, I watched Malignant for the first time. Sometime this year, I can't remember quite exactly when, but, you know, Rowan's been talking about this, been talking it up. So, you know, I had to watch it. So I watched it alone, I'm pretty sure, for the first time. And my husband walked by and he was like, yeah, I've seen this before. It's okay. So he wasn't a huge fan. But I really liked it the first time that I watched it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it. Let's get into the medical trophies and trench coats of it all. That's what I took away from this film. Yeah, who wants to start?
I just want to say that the opening sequence goes hard because of the absolute banger that is their version of Where Is My Mind, which we were just talking about. Sucker Punch.
Preach it.
Banger. So I don't even care how cheesy it was because I was like, you know what? It goes hard because of the song. A little bit cheesy, but goes hard.
Safari Riot is the group that does the cover. I looked it up because I remember seeing this and the first thing I raved about coming to the theater was like the music choices, stuff like that. And I remember I kept thinking that I was like, I wonder what that song is. I was like, it really sounds like a song I know. And then I kept thinking about the Pixies that I'm like, no, they must just be using like the same refrain or something. And it wasn't until this viewing I was like, oh yeah, it's literally just like a cover of it. And then I had to do it. Then finally, now that it's been a couple years, like people have the list of the music up and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't find much on Safari Riot. Apparently they're like also a company, like an AI company or something that do like...
Oh, wonderful.
It's like 2 producers that do electronic music, but they like do experimental things for film. Like they specifically focus on stuff for film. So, yeah, I might add that to the playlist. I'm just letting you know.
You should, because it's good.
Is this the one that carries over into like the opening credits, the song, or is it a different track? Because I have a specific note that says this 2000s-esque Saw opening title track is so mid. So I'm hoping it's not the same
No,
one.
that is a different song.
All right, good.
I had a different feeling for the intro. I really like the whole credit intro. Like I think the music, I mean, that's not my kind of music, so it's mid for me anyway. Like I had written down industrial rock music.
Yeah.
What the fuck? You guys hurt me.
Why?
What's wrong with... Anyways, continue.
It just doesn't
I
fit.
agree with you, Jill. I'm on your side.
It just doesn't fit for a movie in 2021.
It
That's all.
does.
It feels like something from 2003.
It does because of the tone, and I'm going to go back to Mike's Letterboxd review where he's talking about this being a goth beat, right? Industrial rock is a goth beat. They go together.
I think you're scolding Colton, not me, because I like the intro. I like the music.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what
I was pumped for it because before we get into that, we got that whole opening scene at the hospital and like the wild camera angles and like the lighting and everything, and
it's time to cut the cancer.
Yeah, everyone's favorite. Got to cut the cancer out, and
we talk about that.
I'm for it. I'm for this intro because to me,
it's so bad.
This is
so
James.
cheesy.
This is James Wan just like showing his love of like 70s, 80s, 90s like camp horror, and I was like, this is the kind of intro that would be in a 90s horror movie, just like the shit.
Get the camp in that. I didn't think that was camp.
Oh, super camp.
I will agree with Rowan in this take. It is camp, and this is fundamentally one of the reasons why this movie doesn't work, because it's a $40 million B movie, and it's just completely at odds with itself the entire time.
Wow, you just took a giant steaming pile there.
Yeah, I don't want to launch into just kind of hating on the movie, because this is one of those movies. Spoiler. I don't like basically anything about this movie.
Okay.
So I'll leave you guys to talk about it a bit. But it is something that when I'm watching this movie, I will agree it's very campy. But I think a lot of like the camera flare and a lot of like, let's say the big CGI transitions, or I don't know, even some of the moments in the movie where it's trying to be more dour and downbeat and actually act, to actually be sad and, have grief and whatnot. I think it's just constantly at tones with especially what's revealed in the third act of this movie.
I mean, that's a proper James Wan thing there, is, put some soul into it, put some family things in there, make it, make it sad.
Having family issues isn't what my issue is with this movie.
No, but I want to go back to the camp thing, because I did not receive any camp. What I saw was corn. It was corny. Whenever they opened their eyes really wide, like the characters always opened their eyes really wide when they were scared, and they like zoomed in with the camera. I was like, this is terrible. I hate this. And then they always are like, they say something really cheesy, like it's time to cut out the cancer, which should be really cool. It should be a really cool thing to say, but they do that zoom in with the eyes, and it just ruins it for me. And I didn't think it was funny. I was like, it looks like they're trying really hard to be edgy and they're failing. Is that just me?
I think so.
I think you're missing it though, because isn't camp? It's like it's the intentional theatricality of being like over the top. That's the point of it, right? So basically, the reason why I always have an issue with camp is because there's a very fine line between a filmmaker or a movie actually being bad, and then a filmmaker or a movie basically being intentionally theatrical and over the top, which is just kind of at odds with my sensibilities. I hate like big showy performances that are like cheesy or hokey, or the third act in this, which is just, so ridiculous for something that's marketed as a horror movie.
So it makes it corny.
I mean, it is corny, but you can't say it's not campy. It's very like
corny is one of the like things
cringy
that gives it camp.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's one of the qualities why I like it, is like those zoom ins. It's just like, everything about it is it's like a ridiculous choice, even though I know Juan is making that choice intentionally to be like, I want this to look like
You won?
Yeah, I want. Now, every time there's a word with like "won" in it, do I have to like emphasize it in the episode?
For Wanuary, yeah. You just specifically
for Wanuary, yes.
I wan it to, but no, like, I mean, so I could see, I see it from both ends. I see why some people wouldn't like that. Like, I see why some people would be like, that's a little off-putting, especially, if you walk around your average day wearing A24 shirts and doing that kind of thing. Colton's nodding, he knows.
We're not naming names.
Yeah, we're not naming names. He knows
Colton.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, yeah, to me, and I don't know if Michael agree with this. You know what? Especially that whole intro and the ridiculousness, the colorness of it. You know what I really thought about was Halloween 6. Like, the MTV Halloween movie is what the vibes I was getting. This is kind of riffing on. Is like that mid-90s, like...
Well, okay, I'm not going to say I agree with Halloween 6 in particular because I haven't seen it in so long, but Halloween 6 is in the stable of what I think it was imitating, which is exactly what you're saying, which is Dimension Films 90s
Yeah, like just
in early 2000s.
Everything's kind of
because I think Halloween
up.
6 was Dimension. Yeah,
yeah, everything's amped up. Everything's got like this metal soundtrack and the lighting.
Rock,
like these scenes at the beginning really reminded me of like some of those basement scenes of Halloween 6 where like they use like a heavy blue lighting in some rooms, and like I said, it almost has this sheen that you're like, this should look cheap. It should look like an 80s B movie, but
it doesn't.
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
But to me, that gives me the thought. I'm like, yeah, but that's also in the mid 90s. That's what they tried to do, or take these B movies and then give them the shine that they weren't B movies. They were like, good and hip, and they were like music video quality.
Yes,
this has Buffy the Vampire Slayer in it.
But they wind up being unintentionally bad because of their budgetary restrictions, or like the inability to, like, let's say like Halloween 6, I haven't seen it, but I assume it's not doing what Halloween 1 did. I assume it's like far and away a lesser budget, probably just, it's probably just a cash grab, this hokey movie. It's like they're trying to be like that with a $40 million budget, with using huge built sets with overhead cameras and big robo cranes coming in through windows and shit. It's like they're trying to be poor when they have all the money in the world to execute on this movie.
It's like Grimes.
It's strange. They're
cosplaying.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I'll say, I know it's skipping like way ahead, but I had a little bit of time when I was done watching this before we recorded to watch just the featurettes and stuff. I saw that Robo Crane in action. Holy fuck, man. That's impressive. Pre-programmed. That's crazy. Like, no one's controlling it. It just is doing all the camera movements through AI. And I was like,
just like it was done in the mid 90s.
Yeah, I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. It's impressive technology, but it's just, once again, it's, for me when I'm watching it, just constantly at odds with the movie it's trying to be. That's even like, we can talk about how he calls this a giallo. It's not remotely sexy. It's obviously like, okay, there are knife kills in it, I guess. Obviously it happens, but it's just, when I'm watching this movie, it's like, for me, a giallo, like at its core, it has to be, obviously sexy. It has to be, it's one of the core tenets. Obviously, it has to be like knife fights, knife kills. Fights. There we go. Like, not knife fights. No, it's not an action movie. And then like obviously moody lighting and stuff. He gets like a couple of them, but he misses like one of the core tenets of what a giallo is. It's just strange. I'm watching this movie and it's like, this is one of the least sexy movies I've ever seen.
And
what's
you've seen
the least sexy
Midsommar
thing for you?
And The Witch.
The
Witch is actually
what's unsexy about this movie?
Is it the protruding monster from
I
the
think
back of
the
scalp?
spousal abuse at the beginning of the movie is pretty unsexy.
Okay.
Where she
All right,
loses her child
there.
is pretty unsexy. I think a lot of this movie is. I mean, it's moping around the house for 40 minutes, I think is. I just don't understand how you call this movie and apparently make this as a love letter to giallo filmmaking. You completely miss.
I think it was elements of it, because it has elements of like,
bro,
18
you listen to him
genres.
talk about this movie, he's like,
I don't listen to people talk about their movies because I don't want their opinions on them.
So when I first saw this, I was of the exact same opinion, because everyone going into it had heard him promote it and be like, this is my love letter to giallo and whatever. And I was the same. Coming out of it, I was like, yeah, like this. You had some blues, you had some pinks and stuff. But other than that, like, it wasn't really. But I will say the second time.
And the coat and the gloves and the knife.
The second time, I think I'm more aligned with it, because the more I kind of read and listened to him talking about it, is I think him saying it being a love letter to giallo is almost wrong wording, because when he really gets into it, he's talking about, this is my love letter to Argento. Like, he specifically said, this is Dario Argento's, like, that's what I wanted this to be. And then I kind of
shot in the house is like something from Tenebrae.
Yeah, well, and then I kept thinking, like, yes, in one way, you're kind of right, Colton, because, it's not like just a guy in, gloves and a knife stabbing people, and it has those, like, tenant, those kind of rules set for giallo. But then I thought about Argento's version of giallos that are very like supernatural and have, you know, like people with powers and like
Stendhal syndrome.
Yeah.
Trauma, yeah.
Like, so then I was like, okay, I guess I could kind of see it now.
Mother of Tears, yeah.
Where he's maybe thinking more like, you know, Argento was willing to infuse these other horror tropes into some of his giallo movies that weren't just like basic Italian giallo. And then I don't know, I just think this watch I was like more with it.
Yeah, for me it's just it's missing like one of the core tenets of like what it's trying to adapt. It'd be like making a possession movie without, I don't know, them trying to get exorcised in the third act, or, you know, making like a slasher movie without, I don't know, having any slashing or something. It's missing like one of the core conceits of like the genre you're trying to adapt. And once again, it's trying to adapt a genre that has been notoriously made for like low budgets and are grungy and, you know, have to use moody lighting and harsher lighting literally to convey their tones to get it across. And he's doing it like at a $40 million budget. Is
that supposed to be a lot of money? Because that doesn't sound like a lot of money for me.
I mean, okay, like, I guess I can be the A24 fanboy, but every single one of their movies have been made for probably a quarter of that until, you know, probably within the last 2 years, right? Like,
okay, I don't know. Again, I don't know what he says about his own movies and don't really care. But if you're saying he's calling it a love letter, I sort of see that. Because I don't think that a love letter has to be a straight up imitation of whatever it is, or like this is going to be a straight up version of that. I see him like taking skeletons of that and elements of it and then doing something else with it. So I don't know. I totally see where that argument is coming from, because there are so many elements of it that are there and they're perfect. You know what I mean? It's not a giallo movie, but I feel like I can definitely see if someone said it was a love letter to it, because I see that in like 3/4 of its like technical and plot elements. I don't know. Again, I didn't read any of the articles. I'm just going on what I saw on the screen.
Like I read an article on the making of it, and I watched, you know, there's not a whole lot of interviews or anything on this movie. There's like a 5-minute featurette, right? So I watched what I could and read what I could on the movie, but I mean, a lot of the points I'm saying, I'm sure if you go back and listen to what I'm saying in 2021, is probably pretty similar to my thoughts on the movie then.
I feel like it was, yeah.
Just like by saying, you just said perfect, and obviously you were talking about it adapting certain giallo elements, but like what do we think about like the acting in this movie? I literally couldn't take any part of this movie at all remotely seriously, and there are moments in this movie you're supposed to take seriously. It's just all so terrible. And specifically, I think if you drill down, the cop characters in particular, the two, one of which I think is a James Wan self-insert character, but whatever, that's another thing that I just have a weird hang-up on in a lot of movies. Did you guys like the acting in this movie? Did you think it was well done? Did anyone give a good performance in your eyes? Or
I didn't like it. I just thought it was supposed to be like vaguely parodic and over the top and melodramatic. I thought everything about it was, so I was like, the acting is too. This totally goes in line with that like kind of Dimension Films 90s aesthetic that's going for. They're just like, I looked at it and I was like, I don't see anybody here being like, oh, I'm gonna like star in this like 100% of Rotten Tomatoes. I just thought they were all like, yeah, let's just ham it up, right? Like, we're in this like completely ridiculous over the top movie, so let's be over the top.
I'm going to say the same thing that I said earlier, you know, with like the eyes widening and zooming in on that. Like that for me, the acting took me out of it. I was like, that's corny. And I'm going to say it again. I thought the acting was mostly corny. Same with the cops, and also like that weird relationship between her sister and the cop. I did like the black lady cop though. I thought she said some funny things like, you know, you look like Sloth from the Goonies or whatever. So I did like her. I liked what she added to it, but you know, I love a good funny cop. But apart from that, yes, there were moments that were a little corny.
I loved Maddie Hassan that plays like her sister Sydney. I thought her performance was super funny. To me, I was like, she gets what this movie is. Like it didn't matter what emotion was needed for the scene. She was pretty much deadpan for everything, like just no emotion at all, which made it super funny. Like I had written down the scene where she is like letting Madison know that like Derek's dead. and she's just like zero emotion. She's like, oh yeah, Derek's dead, and just doesn't care. No cares in the world.
Well, Derek's a dick.
Well, Derek is a dick, but I just thought it was funny. Like, you're breaking it to your like sister that just woke up, that whether he's a shitty partner, you know, or well, he is, there's no whether, but like in any circumstance, like there would be some sort of emotion there, and everything about her, I thought was hilarious. Her climbing the house to get in, which I'm still not sure the physics of that, how she got up there. I enjoyed she was in the window. She wasn't breathing heavy. There was no sweat or anything. She was just in the window.
Hey, and she was just like, oh, your door is locked, because she just like changed out the locks.
And those are the things that I just, you know, I was like, I was laughing. I thought it was funny. I think it's like pretty intentional, because then when they cut to her,
I thought it was weird.
When she's in the house from coming in the window, then she's like breathing heavy like she should be. And I was like, yeah, that's just that's just awesome. And then I just love, you know, like the throwaway lines like, well, I couldn't bring the casserole while I climbed up here. And
right.
like, yeah, I all praise to Madison Hassan. I don't know how she says her last name. But I thought she was super funny.
What do we think of Annabelle Wallis? Obviously, she's the lead of the movie, Madison.
I think she
like
did.
Her?
Yeah, I liked her.
Her bangs are amazing.
Yeah.
And she has those eyes, so her eyes like carry this movie.
Yeah.
I love it. There's a reason why they're like always wide and like, whoa, because it's like you could literally fucking swim in them.
Yeah, for me, she's one of the performances. I feel like she's actually trying to act throughout the movie, but she also winds up being one of those issues for me just because she doesn't seem like she knows what movie she's in. Sometimes she's trying to deliver these really over-the-top lines really earnestly and actually give a good performance, but the movie's lines and like kind of what's going on in the scene doesn't seem like it should be being delivered in such a way. And there's also obviously she has to deal with some scenes where, you know, like once again, like the miscarriage scene, it's kind of, I watched it the day after I watched Midsommar, and as you all know, there's loads of scenes in Midsommar of Florence Pugh breaking down and absolutely losing it. And by comparison, I mean, Annabelle Wallis just she doesn't hold a candle to Florence Pugh in the movie.
Hell no. Who can, though?
But, you know, it's the type of, you know, that scene kind of warrants that sort of performance, that kind of breaking down. So it was a weird thing where throughout the movie to me, she seemed like she didn't know what type of movie she was in. So
yeah, but that's
I missed what Mike said, but
he said any blonde girl can hold a candle to Florence Pugh.
Oh God,
I'm kidding. I love her. I love her.
What?
She's fine. Mm-hmm. She's fine. We love Florence.
She's fine.
To me, that kind of works, though, with Annabelle, just because, you know, like I said, when I think about probably what he's mimicking and what he, you know, or mimicking or homaging or whatever he's doing with this, like, you know, I'm thinking about a lot of leads in those kind of movies, like also necessarily don't understand what kind of movie they're in at the time and try to give like these serious roles in movies that are just, you know, when we reflect on them 30 years later, we're like, this movie's fucking insane. Like, how could anyone be making this movie seriously?
That's what I love about it, that disconnect.
Yeah.
That also, not to bring up the C word again, but that is, in some people's formulation of camp, that is one of the key elements, is that there's a disconnect and they don't realize that they're doing something bad. And they're being earnest. Earnestness can go a long way in making something awful.
Well, I agree with that there is like an earnestness to it, but this movie, once again, it doesn't have that, other than I guess her. I guess she's the one that's trying, but the rest, everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. Right there. I know you cannot appreciate that sensibility. One day you're hopefully going to.
There are some movies that have camp that I appreciate. This is not one of them. And I will say that it is something that I'm kind of allergic to. It is something that it's very hard to win me over when I watch a movie and I go like, oh my God, this is just, everyone's winking at the camera for 90 minutes, you know. This doesn't wink at the camera the entire time, but like it's, in my opinion, it's undoubtedly camp.
It kind of does,
discussed in the beginning.
I mean, I was going to say, one of the things I found that I did like, and I mean, I feel like, you know, this is also kind of controversial whether you like it or not, but to me, it was just like a lot of the ideas in it, a lot of like some of the practical gags, stuff like that, or like, you know, is there like actual logic to some of it, or like real world logic? Like, I was thinking specifically when Derek like hears the sound, so he gets up and he's looking around the house, and then you get the flash of you know, what we think's her, but it's actually Gabriel, like flipping through the TV, and then the lights go off, then they come back on, he's gone, but like then the couch cushion is like indented.
That's
like
a neat detail. Yeah.
There's like a ghost, but then it takes like forever for it just kind of like, because I remember first seeing it, I was like, oh, this is a ghost thing. And they kind of allude the whole, before you know
like
the twist.
Herring.
Yeah, you kind of think like, oh, this is like some sort of like The Ring or something. There's like something going on that this is going to be a ghost movie. Like that whole Derek killing scene, like, you know, we kind of get like the Samara looking like figure appearing in the darkness out of nowhere. But I just kind of liked, I was like, you know what? This movie just doesn't really care. It's just kind of like, you know what? We're going to do some stuff that we think looks cool, is batshit wild, and we think's fun. Like, I really enjoy all the like scene melting into the kills, where Madison's like envisioning the kills. Like, I thought that was pretty cool because I was like, I've never seen it done like this. You know, there were some times I thought it looked better than others, but I was like, I appreciate the swing. It was something different I've never seen. We've had lots of movies that like people have connections with a killer. Stuff we've done on the podcast, Eyes of Laura Mars, you know, like, but it's always like they see it in flashes and you know, oh, I saw this, where we're actually getting her like put into that scenario, even though at the time we think she isn't there. And like, I thought stuff like that was pretty cool. Like, I was like, salute to James Wan, like doing something a little different. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but
yeah, I like that. And I also liked when you first kind of get that with the doctor's face on the washing machine door or the dryer door, whatever it is. I thought that was really cool.
Stuff like that. It was just like little details like that I thought were good. It like connected it well. Like I said, it was stuff I had never seen, so I was highly impressed with it. I'm surprised no one's mentioned it yet. When they show her getting the phone calls from Gabriel when she was a kid, we're in the Skinamarink universe. You see the updated version of the phone.
Yeah,
it was the Skinamarink phone, but it had like LED lights at the bottom, and it rang and flashed, but it's the exact same phone.
It actually had the face and everything on it?
Yeah, it had, when it zooms it has the face, the eyes, and everything, but it's like an updated version.
I mean, that is a phone from like the 70s.
Of course, yeah.
I just always forget how creepy that phone is with that face, so thanks for reminding me.
I fucking love that scene. I love a good, like, placement of tables and chairs and desks and stuff that are like in the middle of the room so that you can get a really good shot with like space around it. And I'm like, nobody would ever have their desk in the middle of the room, but honestly, I fucking love it. And if I had the room, I would do that same thing. Honestly, the back of that desk facing the camera would look like garbage because every desk I had when I was a kid was like, the back of it was like, don't ever let anybody see this because it's like paper. You know, like nailed on. Maybe that was just me with my cheap ass poor person furniture.
No, I had the same
from Zellers, and Consumers Distributing.
How did you guys like the hypnotherapy scene? Do you like some hypnotherapy in your horror movies? To me, that was like one of the peak camp scenes of her just like freaking out in the hit, you know, like, you gotta get her out. They're like tapping her on the head, and I was just like, everyone's like totally overacting in this.
It was very Insidious also, like, you know, same kind of thing happening there.
I love the actress that played the hypnotherapist. She was like in a lot of like sitcoms that went on for 7 episodes in like the early 2000s, so she's my girl. That's my jam, you know. Failed sitcoms are my everything. And she was in a lot of them. God love her. She tried.
Bless her heart.
She was like NBC's like pilot girl for like 5 years.
I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know if you guys. I checked out like the IMDb and like the Wikipedia and stuff like that, but I know she didn't have a writing credit on it. But story created by James Wan's wife. But I thought it was kind of interesting. Yep. About, I started reading about Edward Mordrake, which is what Gabrielle is based on, which is an urban legend from the 19th century about like a English king that claimed someone like lived in him and talked to him and told him to do bad stuff.
Also an American Horror Story.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one?
That's why that sounded familiar. Was it Circus?
I think so. I have to look it up.
I feel like it was in Circus. I don't know why.
Yeah, because remember that was like when they had like like the people who were really special, like in jars and stuff.
Yeah. That was a moment.
Yep.
But yeah, I liked reading about that urban legend. Although I don't know, in my field of work we call that schizophrenia. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you know.
They didn't know any better, so...
Did they check to see if he had, like, a little Voldemort on the back of his head, or...
You know what? I might have to talk to the people, the doctors and nurses at my work and start having that done as a procedure. Say, listen, guys, I watched this movie. You guys need to check it out, and we may have found what's going on here.
Speaking of the doctors and nurses, once again, maybe like it's probably just all logic when I'm watching this movie that I can't turn it off, but it's also like this pregnant woman skull bashed so bad she has like a 10-inch pool of blood on her pillow. She's bleeding against the door. She's bleeding against everything. This woman doesn't think to go to the hospital despite having a kid. When she does finally go to the hospital...
Yeah, but she's a nurse. She probably doesn't want them to see her, like, marks of abuse.
Okay, but when she does go to the hospital, they don't notice, like, that there's this fractured skull, cracked skull on the back, the blood, this face, none of this.
Well, the face is in the skull until it comes out, because there's a very specific point when it comes out. Then she just like awakens Gabriel, right? And there's like another moment where he like actually comes alive.
I think
like,
he's awake. I think
he's awake, but his face is not protruding.
Yeah, because towards the end, we when we finally kind of get to see Gabriel like do his thing and how he does it, like it's almost like the slit isn't there until he comes out, and then it just kind of like
it's not until the prison scene.
Yeah,
which is my favorite scene, by the way.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, honestly iconic. Better than every Marvel movie.
I would have to look back, but I feel like there are scenes where there's some.
There is, but it's in her
where
head.
It's suggesting there's a face there.
Yeah,
like I'm thinking about the scene when he drops from the ceiling and lands on her mother. I'm thinking there's a face when he does that, or at least like shining eyes or something like that in the Seattle Underground. But anyways, like, once again, it's like, okay, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't care that they wouldn't notice, like, this woman that came in clearly getting knocked unconscious pregnant. I guess they wouldn't do a head scan on her or notice anything strange there, I guess.
Yeah, no, that is
maybe
strange.
Her insurance sucks because she works at the
hospital. Possibly. It's just like a little thing, like, when I'm watching, I'm like, that bumps for me.
Oh, listen, the whole time I was watching this movie, I was like... Colton's gonna logic this one. Colton's gonna logic that. Colton's gonna logic. That's every note I have.
Yeah.
So I was like, I knew this one. I was like, yep, he's gonna say something about that.
I even have notes.
Thank you for.
I think it's really dangerous, like how close like Sydney parked to the edge of the cliff. When she went back to the mental institution, she was 1 foot away. I mean, that's dangerous.
It's like a parking lot that has room for 2 bicycles, and that's it.
Yeah.
Jill, we need to make sure we clear you space let's have that prison talk.
Yeah, so the prison cell when Maddie's getting like beaten up by all these women and the woman with the mullet.
Okay, yes, you brought her up before we go forward. We just need to have a moment and salute. We salute Zoe Bell.
That's right.
The iconic actress and stunt woman who has the best mullet I've ever seen in this movie. And she only has like 4 lines and they're all bangers.
Yeah.
So
a favorite of Tarantino.
Yes, Tarantino's go-to, like Uma Thurman stunt woman in Kill Bill.
That's really cool.
And an actual character and stunt person in Death Proof. But anyway, sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, salute
No,
Zoe
it's
Bell.
cool that you know that, like who that is.
Oh yeah, I love
no
her.
idea.
She's actually amazing. Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, I liked, I didn't like watching her get beaten up, but I like that scene because that's when, before then, Gabriel was awake, right, from like the wall incident, but he was still like physically inside the skull, but he was still like using her as a puppet. And then this is when she like rips him like open from the back of her skull, like Lord Voldemort and Professor Quirrell shit.
Why were all the women dressed like they were from the 70s? That was kind of my question.
Loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. That whole prison cell was so stylized and chic.
It was. But it was so creepy when her,
it was very like Bava
Argento,
yeah.
Anyway.
Colton hates life right now. Just let all
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to be the downer that's constantly, talking about how I hate everything in this movie, but like, once again, the jail scene's fine. I mean, it's not what I want from a James Wan horror movie. If I want a good action scene, I'll watch John Wick. If I want one that has Wan influences, I'll watch like Upgrade. Or, if I want good camera work, I'll go to Conjuring or something, for a horror with that sort of thing. It's not what I want in this movie in the way it was marketed. I think it's fine. I think all the gore looks cheap and bad, which I'm sure you all go, oh, that's intentional. It's all supposed to look like shit. It's like, okay,
I thought it looked cool.
I don't like the gore when it looks like shit. I'd rather it look good or not have it at all.
I thought Gabriel looked pretty good.
The blood splatters were amazing.
Okay,
the bones protruding from the arms looked amazing. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
It's completely miscolored and cheesy. It looks bad. Gabriel looks good.
Oh my god, miscolored. I don't know.
Bro.
What's the color of...
What's the color of blood? I think we've all seen it before. It's certainly not like bright orange spurting out or whatever it is. It's not quite bright orange, but it's like the color of your hat,
Okay, so this is pink, so now I'm worried about your eyesight. So
okay, it might be the coloring in your room. It looks red for me or whatever it is. But it's just, to me, there's a couple of probably of prosthetics, practical makeup there that in my opinion doesn't look that great. And then if you go to the next scene, where we're talking about like the precinct fight, that's just loads of garbage CGI blood that I don't care. That does nothing for me. It's not at all what I'd want from this sort of movie. And I think a lot of the movie before the last like 30 minutes isn't really this sort of movie at all. And it's like, okay, like I understand a lot of people leave this movie on a high. They're like, oh my God, those fight scenes were amazing. That was crazy. The twist was, insane. But I still maintain there's a good 40 minutes of this movie that is just fairly dull. So it's just like, yeah, sure, it ends on a high note if that's what you're looking for. That's not what I look for in my horror movies, but I mean, I can understand how you could enjoy it.
I love when a movie completely turns into a different movie partway through. I'm not even being sarcastic to like disagree with you. Like I truly do. I feel like every great movie experience I've ever had is like, oh, this is not at all the same movie as it was an hour ago. I love it.
Yeah, I can't help it.
I love it.
This is
Rowan,
like...
you've been trying to say something.
I'm going to go back to Rowan, but this movie's like a cheesy B movie. Then it's like a shitty wannabe trauma movie for an hour. And then it's like, oh, it's an action movie at the end, and it's bad in all of them. I'd prefer to watch different things on all of them. So,
and the main character is a bunch of different people in one. So it makes sense. It makes sense. It's sure. Like a movie within a movie. And sure. She's a person within a person. I'm just saying, it's maybe more structurally complex than you were able to perceive.
that's I'll admit to that. Yeah, I'm too dumb to get this movie. It's way too smart. Rowan, give your thoughts on this scene, for God's sake.
Yeah, I didn't feel too offended by it. I thought the precinct fight was pretty badass. I do like the jail cell fight a little better than the precinct one, but I mean, whatever. We got to injure those cops. I didn't put my 2 cents in when we talked about the cops, but they were the only thing I didn't really like about this. And after hearing Wan talk about it, he basically said they were only in there for kind of comedic effect. Like they weren't funny, so I didn't really understand that.
Bad buddy cop duo, I think. Yeah.
I mean, Gill found it funny.
I thought it was funny, but, shit on me, I guess.
But I thought, I think, like I said, there was just things about this I really enjoyed. And I wanted to make sure, like, I was kind of impressed, especially when I was watching the featurette. Marina Mazeppa and Troy James were the two contortionists that play Gabriel.
Can we talk about that?
Salute.
But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because when I first saw this, I thought for sure, I was like, they just like did digital effects or something with this. And then when I saw that, like, no, we actually had like two contortionists actually do everything. Like, they show in the featurette, like, them going through the scenes, and I'm just always amazed, because, you know, my body's old and barely moves at all, and then people that can do shit like that just always amaze me.
Well, that is cool, but one of my issues with the movie is actually how goofy it looks when you see, like, the mask that's supposed to be her face when she's, like, knocked out. You can see it, like, hanging off, and it's, like, so clearly a mask, and I was like, wait a damn minute. They couldn't have done something better than this.
I love it. It reminds me of, like, Alien.
But they needed to do better with that.
No, Jill, that was intentional. This whole movie's supposed to be bad, but good. Don't you know?
It's okay. Goofy. If you get it, you get it. If you get it, you get it.
Nah, it's goofy and not in a good way, damn it.
I loved it. I thought it was hysterical. Oh my god. I'm like, that fucking face is so funny.
Oh god.
I'm just surprised we've gone this far and we haven't got a mic rating on Gabriel's wig when he's wearing the wig.
Excuse me, so let's look at one of my notes. The wigs are exceptional. This is not going on my bad wig letterbox list. Unlike Saltburn.
So
Carey Mulligan's wig, and that was insane.
rocking the wig. He was owning it.
Her whole wig assortment, like, that's where all the money went. $40 million? Yeah, like 20 was to the wig department.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I didn't have much else written down. The only thing I didn't really say is, they play Your Painted Smile by Brian Ferry from Roxy Music, and that song's fantastic.
Love
nice.
Brian Ferry.
Yeah, if you want a really great music video, also the music video for that song, just fantastic. Roxy Music, I just feel like doesn't get enough love. So
no, you're right.
Since this is a rewatch for all of us, which doesn't happen very often, I just wanted to say for me, my rating definitely changed for like the worse the second time around, and I wouldn't say there's a lot of rewatch value. You know, during the first watch, there's a lot of details, but then you get them in that watch, and there's like not much to go back and like scavenge, you know, and it's like very like predictable, like you know what's going to happen, and you know it's kind of like squandered in that first watch. But what did you guys think?
I was gonna say for me on a rewatch, it was more so like I was noticing once again like just some inconsistency, and maybe it's just me not getting something, but like for example, when she's being chased by Gabriel in the beginning of the movie, it was kind of like, okay, I know Gabriel's in her head. I know Gabriel is essentially, you know, he takes over her and, you know, becomes her. But then like this whole chase scene in the beginning of the movie just makes absolutely no sense, because the rest of the time when Gabriel essentially puts her in all these dream scenarios, she's like kind of frozen, like almost like sleep paralysis. And like she's like a passive observer watching what's happening. But in this scene, we got this big chase scene. We got the reveal of like, oh, there's this, you know, creature creeping over her husband, you know, whose head's twisted around and whatnot. And it was just kind of like, I was wondering, why did they choose to do that? I guess in the beginning of the movie, it's something when I was watching in retrospect, I was like, I don't think this makes sense with what he explains in the third act of what he does. But yeah, on a rewatch, I will say that for most of it, I was just kind of waiting to see the reveal, or kind of watching how James Wan kind of hints at it being other movies. Like, as we mentioned, it's very clearly like, oh, he's going for like a ghost story, Conjuring-esque thing in the beginning. Then it winds up being like, okay, she's clearly crazy. Then for me, I kind of got shades of like, you know, the almost like the asylum inmate that got out or something. I was like, oh, maybe they're trying to go for the weird twin, or like, you know, this malignant tumor creature thing. You know, it's going in a bunch of different directions. So I do think that is pretty
like
well
Gollum
done.
Or something.
like misleading the audience into what type of movie you're watching. But yeah, there was just that, there was like a logic issue when I was watching it this time, that I was like, oh, that's weird. For all the rest of the times, I know they're very deliberate of kind of having her standing off, kind of paralyzed, like frozen, a passive observer to what's going on. Mike, how do you feel about on a rewatch? What'd you catch or what'd you enjoy?
It's like a cast iron frying pan that you just keep seasoning. I enjoy it every time I watch it, and I find the like aesthetic of it to be very rich and to my taste, because I do love like a lot of the things that he was like homaging, like Argento and the crazy lighting and the camera work and stuff. So I just, if nothing else, I can sit down and watch it and I just eat up the aesthetic of the whole movie and the kind of flow of it. So yeah, rewatches to me are just improve this movie. Sorry, like I just, and I appreciate there's elements of it that I appreciate, I think, more, even though they're like, bad. And I actually appreciate how good they are. So yeah, rewatches, I love it, Ro. Like, I mean, I know you're kind of
in the same
all over the place.
I enjoyed the rewatch. So, like I said, to me, I just had fun with it, and I thought it aged pretty good. Well, with that, are we comfortable to go into rating this?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's land the plane. If you're new to the show, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Colton, we did this episode just to annoy you.
Yeah, I mean, when we came up with this plan, to be clear, I was just like, yeah, we should choose Malignant just because it'd be funny, just because I'm such a hater of this movie.
Yeah.
I did kind of think that maybe on a rewatch it would improve for me, or especially, like, let's say if my family who I watched it with really enjoyed it, but basically all of them were on the same page as me. I think one of us liked it. So yeah, it's a nay from me. It's my mom, weirdly enough.
Oh, nice.
Nay.
A nay?
Oh yes, surprise. Yeah, I don't like any aspect of this movie, really.
God.
I think literally for me, the only aspects I like is how Wan fools the audience and think it's multiple different movies. The twist conceptually is cool. I don't like what happens right after it happens. And I do like some of the analog horror stuff, which we didn't really get into, but some of the, like, watching through the old VHSs, or specifically how the Gabriel reveal is handled, where they lift up the tripod and kind of show the back of her head.
Yeah.
Like, on a first watch, I remember that being, like, really good for me, and it kind of got, like, a visceral reaction from people watching with me. But yeah, no, like, I'm sorry, but like this is a movie, like we never talked about the camera work in terms of like how a lot of the shots are pulled way back and you see people's feet and it's just like not framed well, in my opinion. I thought it was doing like, you're a passive observer of what's happening, but then it betrays that and the camera just starts moving around anyways. And I think like it's just because he wanted to have a weird robo crane movement or something. And it's just, I don't know. I don't like the lighting, don't like the acting. Music does nothing for me. There's nothing I like about this movie. This is like a hard nay for me. This is like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not my vibe at all. I can't stand this movie. Jill, you were amazed that I gave it a nay. What are you giving it?
Holy shit, I am baffled. So yeah, the first time that I watched this, I gave it a 4 stars. I think I would give it maybe like a 3.5 now. Like, slowly I'm like, it's not as great as it was the first time, but positives, I love the soundtrack, especially the Where's My Mind cover. I love that they just kind of played the intro of that anytime something spooky was happening. I liked, the plot. I liked the way Gabriel looked, and I think I said on my Letterboxd review, Lord Voldemort walks so Gabriel could run. But
if I knew more Harry Potter, that would be funny, I'm sure.
I did not know the first Harry Potter book. But anyway, I thought some of the acting was good, but some of it was kind of corny. I didn't like the, like I said, the mask hanging off the back when she's like unconscious. So it was like kind of like really inconsistent for me. And I think on this rewatch, the thing that like really sobered me up and took me out of the movie was when her scalp just like sews itself up, because I didn't take it as like a supernatural kind of movie. I took it as like a scientific movie sort of deal. If like you believe that, you can control things like radio waves and like, it kind of has that like telekinesis sort of thing, which I think could be rooted in science. But that her scalp just like melding together, I was like, oh, so it's that type of movie. So I was like confused. So yeah, I am still going to give it a yay because I still liked it. I think maybe I need to go in with another rewatch, give it some time and try to see it from the lens that Mike and Rowan, you guys are seeing it from, where, things are intentionally over the top, because I didn't get that. So I don't know, like, if maybe I'm a little dumb. I don't know. but I didn't get that, so I need to rewatch it, I think. But yeah. What about you, Mike?
Okay, so I'm giving it a extremely high yay. Not quite giving it a slay, because, I mean, listen, it goes on for, like, a little bit too long for me. I have, like, quibbles with it, but I consistently, like, enjoy this movie more every time I watch it, and that hardly ever happens, especially on a movie that is, like, you know, a lot of people, like, its reputation for a lot of people just rests on a twist, and I just loved the aesthetic of the rest of it. I appreciated its, like, roots in 90s horror. Like, I saw a lot of movies that I love in it, like, including one that we've done before, like House on Haunted Hill and all the Dimension movies, and it was just very slick and sleek like that, and I loved the camera work, even though Colton hated it, because it kind of reminded me of, like, a dream, and it, like, kind of was, like, always made me feel, like, off-kilter. And I loved her house. I never mentioned it before. I loved her house. That was part of the aesthetic, and because so much of it took place in the house, I was like, this is one of the coolest, like, most aesthetically pleasing houses that I've ever seen in a horror movie. And that's saying something. And if X was here, we would have spent, like, 20 minutes talking about it, I'm sure. But yeah,
the attic doesn't fit in that house, though, right? With that big spinning fan and whatnot. It's not visible at all.
The fan, no. I don't think the fan does, but yeah. I was also getting, like, the attic of our minds vibes, right? Again, I loved, like, dream logic and, like, that kind of Jill's. Nobody can see this now, but as soon as that came out of my mouth, Jill started to fucking lose her mind.
It's too funny. Well, the house looks bigger on the inside. Also, it's like a TARDIS.
Yeah. It's like a TARDIS, exactly. Yeah.
It's giving
again. TARDIS. It's giving TARDIS. It's giving Dollhouse in the fiery pits of hell. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I love watching it with people. Every time I watch it with people, like, and seeing their reaction. That to me is like, I love a fun watch it with people while you're having some drinks horror movie, and this is that movie. So I don't know, maybe because I always had, like, my whole friend group come over to my house when I was young, and, like, we would literally crowd my room, and there'd be, like, 7 of us watching a movie, so I'd always show them something that I thought was going to shock them, and this just seems like one of those throwback movies that I would have showed them, and, like, everyone would have been like, oh my god. So I love that, like, kind of party movie vibe. So yeah, it's a yay with a toe and a sleigh, but not quite. It's not, you know, it ain't perfect, but Ro, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty strong, I mean, I don't have a toe in a sleigh or anything like that. To me, this is a yay. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it just as much on the rewatch. I think it's a fun time. Like you said, Mike, you know, I didn't bring it up in the review, but I thought the house, I love the look of the house, the outside specifically. I like little bit run down, but just it has that potential. If you fix it up, it would look fantastic. I'm not a car guy, but that wood panel Toyota Corolla, I definitely drive in that. That was a vibe. But yeah, I mean, to me, I just there's just something about it, which is weird. Because, you know, we're doing this month, and I think I've said many times, like, I am not a James Wan guy at all. Like, I don't really like almost anything he's done. So I think it's kind of interesting that this is what I like, and it seems that, you know, this is like the divisive one. So yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say about it. I think it's a good time. So I will give it a strong yay. So yeah, Colton all by himself on that nay. I thought Jill was going there, or at least to the okay.
Yeah, I'm disappointed too. She messaged us last night and she was like, "Oof, this doesn't stand up," or I thought she was going to at least an okay, but I'm all alone, so that's fine.
Mine's a weaker yay than theirs, but, you know, I don't think it's trash. It's not as good as it was the first time.
I will never watch this movie again. I'm good.
Okay, until next time.
But what if someone on Patreon picks it?
We've already reviewed it. We're not opening up that can of reviews or can of worms. We're not going to start re-reviewing everything. Jeez.
So we told you what we thought about it, and we asked what you thought about it, and we had a couple answers come in. Pedal Frog wrote us and said, the level of mind-boggling I never knew I needed at the time it was released. loved it. You know what? That's kind of another thing I thought about when I was watching this. And like I said at the beginning, reflecting, we didn't talk a lot about, COVID times, but I think kind of a big appeal to a lot of people would have just been, it was just something that wasn't serious and during a time that everyone was losing their minds. So,
True.
Maybe that puts it in a better light for a lot of people. We had Freddie Nutty write in, and he just wrote, masterpiece, ! So obviously just loving it.
Colton's face right now.
Yeah. And then finally we had Melanie St. George write in and just wrote, absolutely loved it! ! So the three people that wrote in, just not on Colton's side.
They said, fuck you, Colton.
3 people that wrote in and the 3 people on the show. So,
I'm sure there's people on. I mean, there's a lot of people I heard when it came out that hated it, so that's okay. And then from there, I think we have a voicemail from Mr. Nicholas. So we will get into the horrific hotline.
So while I know that a lot of people really hate this movie and another bunch of people really loves this movie, I have to say I'm somewhere in the middle, but I would call myself a malignant enjoyer, meaning that do know that the movie is objectively not
You're
a good
killing
movie.
me, Nicholas.
It
I'm going
takes
home.
itself way too serious. It is definitely too long. And I mean, it makes sense once the twist is revealed, but the woman getting captured and the other woman, the main character, do look very similar, and I did confuse them at the beginning.
Yes, too, actually.
For
That's
the
funny.
entire movie, and made the movie have a little less sense. But that doesn't really matter because you've got the police station sequence, which is out of nowhere gory fun, and you have a backwards running sibling tumor thingy from the back of the head. I really don't know. I enjoyed the movie, I have to admit. Maybe it just scratches a certain itch for a so dumb it's fun movie for me, but it made me laugh. It made me jump actually like twice or 3 times.
Snap.
And I did enjoy it overall. So I'm the little cineast in my head screams no, but I'm gonna give it the weakest of yays for the pure enjoyment of that movie and some weird twists and turns. Though I do have to admit, I'm a bit disappointed in the giallo, or well, the missing giallo aspect. I hoped for more visual references, and I felt it was a little bit lackluster in that area. Though I do like the idea of the movie being kind of a spiritual successor or spiritual follow-up to the Brian De Palma movie Sisters, which I do really like.
Love it.
But which is
his
definitely
taste.
the better movie.
Cool.
And that's so funny because we might be doing Sisters soon.
Oh.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I mean, Nicholas used to be an obvious slay for me, but I think I'm gonna have to bump him down to a yay now, I think, After that one, my heart's broken, so.
Don't listen to him. He's mean sometimes. He's
just hungry. Oh, wait, no, he ate right before he came on. Never mind. He's just digesting.
I scarfed down 2 pieces of pizza and,
you might have indigestion now. That's why
That's
you ate
true.
it too
That's
fast.
what's making me so cranky. Yeah. All right. If you want to be like Nicholas and leave us a voicemail, you can do so on the horrific hotline by sending us an email at itslayspodcast@gmail.com or just, sending us a message on any of our socials at itslayspodcast. If you got a voicemail, you got something to say, want to ask us a question, leave a comment, just send it to us and we'll make sure that it makes the show. And if you're not following us already at It Slays Podcast, you can do so. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, blue sky. I'm laughing at Rowan, who just almost knocked over the mic in the end of the show. We're everywhere. There's a social media at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to support the show, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Carvey, Dan, Brian, and Trevor, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Gill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. I don't know why I'm losing it at the end of this ad read. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my mind a bit. All right, Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist. You know, you like the music at the beginning of this movie? Some
yeah, and I checked.
In there?
I checked the Safari. What did I say they were called? Safari something. I have it written down. But
Safari Riot.
Yeah, Safari Riot. Yeah. Their version of Where's My Mind is on Spotify, so maybe we'll add that. But yeah, go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media Colton just mentioned. Go to the bio and click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from horror movies we review or iconic horror movies or just horror movies we love. So go take a listen, follow it. We update it regularly and get your spooky music on. And from there, all that's left is to announce the next episode, which was a poll we put up because we said we'll let the people know. I'll let you know what didn't make it. Insidious, 0 votes, which I was very surprised.
Yeah,
because I remember when we first started the podcast and doing votes and asking people what they wanted to review. So many people would write us Insidious. And we never did it because I guess we're just shitty people. But
yeah, true.
But yeah, so that didn't win. But an interest.
We did the Red Door.
Yeah, I guess we did do it now, Slain. So we gave you a little bit of Insidious.
Yeah, we talked about the lipstick demon or whatever he's called. That's what he's called. The red face guy. I don't know. I think that's it.
Yeah.
This was a very close race. It came down to 1 vote, and we are going to be doing Dead Silence.
Cool.
Which, yeah. So I think it's kind of cool. It might have a little resurgence. I know Scream Factory just recently put out a 4K of this.
How does that have a 4K and not the talented Mr. Ripley? Like, where is the justice? Paramount, get off your ass, please.
So listeners can play a game called Is Rowan Gonna Go on Amazon after recording and order the 4K to watch this? The answer is probably yes.
The answer is you were just doing it while we were listening to
But yeah, so get your eyeballs on Dead Silence for our next episode of Wanuary. And I think
Wanuary.
Wanuary.
Let's go.
Whatever one you decide to call it. I think that is everything for this episode. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for all the support. I am your humble host, Rowan.
Thanks for everything. It's Mike.
I'm Colton. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy Wanuary, everybody. It's Jill.
It's time. We cut out the cancer.